Hi guys, if it's Friday, it's Down and Dirty WOODSCRAFT. And today we're going to do something, one of those little easy projects for you. In a recent video I was showing my one-win hex tarp and showing how the guy lines are gathered up at the top ends of the next to the tarp made it easier to adjust and made it easier to keep the lines nice and neat and gathered up. And I've had probably 25 people ask me, Blakey, can you show how to do that? Okay, today we're going to do it two different ways. I'm going to show you one where you're going to incorporate a shock cord into it and one where you're not, just super simple. Okay, so let's start with the super simple. Now what we're going to need is we're going to need some guy line. Now this is the same type guy line that comes on the one-win tarps. And I'm going to look and see if they sell this separately because it's got a couple of advantages. One, it's nice bright orange so I can see it in daylight. Two, spiraling up the entire length of this material is a reflective strip. So at night, when you hit it with any kind of light, it just glows. Not like a glow in the dark, but it shines like a reflector on a bicycle or something like that. Or those things you put at the end of the driveway to reflect, that kind of reflection. And one-win, the edge of their tarps do that as well. So all you got to do is just pan the light around and hit, and man, that camp glows. And you can see it easily. Otherwise, that green on green would blend in. Not great for stealth camping, but good for public camping. You know what I mean? So what I've done is, the guideline material you're going to select, you want it to be something that's got a lot of friction to it. And what I mean by that is something like bank line. Okay, if the material is real slicky and smooth and slides real easy and it's hard to keep a knot in it, it's not going to work well for this. You need something that's got a little bit of tension to it, a little bit of roughness to it to do for guidelines like this. Okay, the only other thing you're going to need is a standard cord lock. Like he comes in all kinds of things. You can go to the place that sells sewing stuff and get a small cord lock. And you need it to be something that locks fairly firm onto the type of line. Now if you're wanting to use paracord, you're going to need to use a bigger one of these. If you're using even smaller cord, you may need to get something even smaller. But the bottom line is you need this to lock and it be fairly snug. I know I can just pull through it, but there's some resistance there. That's what I'm looking for. Okay? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a grommet right here. And let me put the line down and I'll show you up close. Okay, I've got a grommet in my tarp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my guy line, and on one end I'm going to tie a bowline knot. Now this bowline needs to be big enough to go over any kind of tent stake I'm going to utilize. I like the bowline for this because also, should I decide to use something big, you know, some sort of large stump or root right there, all I've got to do is just pass the line back through itself and it makes a cinch loop like that, so I can put it around something big and pull it tight and use that. So that pre-standing bowline can be used for going over a tent stake, or it can be, the line can be pushed through and put over a great big stump or whatever. I got something, a rock or something that's handy to anchor to. Okay, that's going to be on the end that's going to the tent stake. Now I'm going to put my shock cord through it one time, my cord lock I should say. I'm going to take the other end of the line and I'm going to come up here to the grommet. I'm going to go through the grommet, come back, squeeze it. This is going to be the fiddly bit. Put the shock cord on. Okay. Now on this end, I'm going to tie a knot to keep it from coming back off that shock cord, that cord lock seating. Just do a double knot right there. Nothing super fancy. Something I can untie if I wanted to. Okay. Now how this is going to work, let me set it up and I'll show you how we're going to work this. Okay, I'm going to come up to my tent stake. I'm going to take my bowline. I'm going to put it over the stake like this. Alright, I'm going to come up to my tarp where I want this eyelet to be. And I'm going to grab a hold of it. The top line is the one with the knot, and that's the one I'm going to pull tension. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze the cord lock, and I'm going to pull the bottom cord first, and that's the one going down to my line, down to my tent stake. I'm going to pull it up snug, then I'm going to pull the slack out of the top, and then I'm going to, holding the top line, now pull it through like that. So I've got the cord lock up here fairly close to this. Now I pull it up where I got about an inch and a half left. I'm going to take that top extra line after I've pulled it tight. I'm going to pull it tight, get my line going to my guy line tight. I'm going to take my extra line, I'm going to wrap it around my hand like that. And then when I pull it off my hand, I'm going to squeeze it flat, wrap it up like 2 or 3 times, and I'm going to stick it in that opening between the tarp and that cord lock and pull that cord lock up tight. Now that's holding all the tension right there, and that's got all my line quick and handy right there. Now if I need to do it even more secure, I can pull it out, and what I need to do right here is just simply give myself a half hitch. Make a loop, pull a half hitch just like that, take the remainder of that line, wrap it up, stick it in that opening just like this, and then slide the cord lock up. That's got it all secure and up tight. That way this will be a nice clean line up here, and that will be all my adjustment and all my gathered up line. So it's not tripping me or nothing like that. It's all right there. Okay, here is the line coming up from my tent stake. I squeeze my cord lock and I pull them tight just like that. I release the cord lock, leaving myself, about an inch or so gap right there. I then take my line and I give myself a half hitch right there so it doesn't slip. Now I wrap up the extra line like that, open up that opening, stick it in, and slide that cord lock up just a little bit, and that holds the line nice and tight. Okay guys, now here's how we're going to start. Here is my little piece of bungee that I've cut, and this is actually the bungee that came off of a pair of U.S. military issue pants. This is for the cords that go through the pockets and things. I went ahead and just cut them off and utilized them. So you can also get these off of canteens and stuff, but I put 2 knots in the end of it. I'm going to take the hole, the grommet, I'm going to pass it through like that, and then I'm going to tie this into a square knot with those knots just like that, and pull them down snug so it's like a fisherman's knot. It's going to lock. Okay, now pulling it so the knots are in the grommet, I'm going to take and squeeze that bungee down tight and take my first cord lock and put on it. Now this is going to be a bit fiddly, but you're going to have to force it through like that. Now slide that cord lock up. That leaves me with a loop, right? Now, if you want to use a dog bone, a pre-made tensioner, you could put it onto this or hook it to a line to this bungee. What I'm going to do, okay, I've got my bungee in place on my grommet. Now I'm going to take and cut me about like 6 inches of bank line, double it in half, push it through, and make a loop. Now I'm going to pull the 2 ends down, just like that. Just like you're beginning a Prusik loop. It'll look just like that basically whenever you're done. Alright, now I'm going to take that and I'm going to go through that elastic and make a lark's head, which is just take the loop, go through the loop, then pass the knot back through its own loop just like that and pull. That's a lark's head. Now this is what I'm going to attach my guy line to. That way this is stationary on this bungee. Okay? Okay, now here is my line that's going to be the actual guy line. I'm going to tie a bowline in this end, and I'm going to make it about a 2 inch. So I'm going to come up here about 4 inches or so. I'm going to go over, make a loop, twist up, make a loop. Bunny rabbit comes out of the hole, goes around the tree, goes back in the hole. Just like that, pinch it, and then pull it up tight. And that makes me about a 1.5, something like that loop. Easy for a tent stake to go in, but I can also handle a larger tent stake. Now if I have to anchor to something bigger, let's say I got a handy stake sitting there, a handy root that big, all I got to do is pass the line back through itself like that and make a loop and put the loop over it, and that will cinch up like a noose, you see. So that bowline on the end can be used multiple ways. So the bowline on the end has got that end done. So that is going to go and hook to the tent stake over there. Now we're going to take the rest of our guy line, we're going to come up here, and we're going to take that cord lock, we're going to go through the cord lock, we're going to go through that piece of bank line, and we're going to go back through that cord lock. This may be fiddly depending on your cord, how big the cord lock is, etc. So bear with me just a second. There we go. Now I pull that. Now on this end, it's going to be my adjustment end. I'm just going to simply tie a knot so it does not go back through that cord lock easily. Okay? I'm going to double knot it. Okay, now what this is going to do for me is this. I have my tarp, I have a cord lock, I have a bungee. My bungee is anchored by a lark's head to my guy line with plenty of room for that guy line to move. Now all I got to do to take it up is squeeze that cord lock, and I can pull it through that cord lock like that, like it's a dog bone, to pull up the slack. I squeeze the cord lock and I pull up the slack to my tent stake. Just like that. And then I'm going to pull it tighter down like that. Squeeze that cord lock and pull the knotted cord, and that'll take all the excess out. So theoretically, now that is my guy line going to my tent stake, and here is my extra left over. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and wrap it around my hand, a couple of loops like that, bring it out, twist it around once or twice, and you know this loop up here that I had left of the bungee, I stick it in there, and then I slide that cord lock down. That then anchors it. So coming off my tarp, you'd have the bungee, the guy line, and then the cord lock to adjust it. That's the dog bone to adjust it. Okay guys, that's the basic idea of it. The thing about it is, you know, typically what we do is we attach a guy line to the tarp, just anchor it somehow, and then we take the untied, unlooped, unprepared end, and we go to a tent stake, and we wrap it around the tent stake, and then we tie a series of taut line hitches or something like that in order to try to hold it. And you got this pile of extra cord because we got 10 feet guy line, we only needed 4 feet or 6 feet this time. There's several feet extra, and we're always tripping over it. It's always a problem. The wind gets up, we're trying to fight, you know what I mean? It just becomes a pain in the butt. So gathering it up somehow. Now, as you saw in this method, I put a bowline and I just hooked that over a stake clean. All the tightening and all the adjustment is up at the tarp. And by just adding a cord lock, that's all. Now I can pull the line tight to hold my tarp as tight as I want it to be. I can then put a 1/2 inch or 2 1/2 inches, makes you feel better, that's great, up there, and that extra cord I can wind up and stick back in that loop that's created by going through the grommet of the tarp. If it won't sit there by itself, slide the cord lock up and hold it. It's still doing its job. The cord lock is still holding the tension, and the half inch in front of it prevents line from slipping back out. So it holds the tarp just fine. The whole secret to this is the fact that it needs to be some sort of cord that's got a little bit of scratchiness, a little roughness to it, so it will grip going through that cord lock very well. If you've got something that's really, really slick, well, then you've still got to do your half hitch, but now you got to do like 2 or 3 half hitches up there at the top to hold tension on that cord like a Prusik would, and then you can still gather up your material and stick it back in the loop. It keeps it up off the ground. That way it's a clean line going down to my tent stake from my tarp. Now, if I set it up that way and I'm ready to take it down, now whenever I'm done to take it down, all I got to do is simply pull that excess cord out, open up that loop a little bit bigger up there at the top, take my entire guy line from the long end and the bowline end that went over the stake, wrap them up around my hand, kink it, roll it 2 or 3 times, stick it into that slot above the cord lock and slide the cord lock up. It's locked in place. No problem. So now when I pull my tarp out, my guy line's already attached and in place, and they're not all over the place and just you know, and that just drives me insane. For years when I was a truck driver and you had to do tarps, and and the job I was doing, a lot of times it wasn't my tarps. And so I would get there to tarp a load, and every tarp had 50 ropes hanging off of it. God knows, it just was a tangled up mess is what it was. And I learned to just take the tarp ropes off of mine. If it was going to be my tarps, my ropes were off. That way I could tarp the load and hook to whatever I needed in the place I needed. And there wasn't just 10 jillion ropes everywhere that just nothing but making a mess. And so I like to do my tarps for my hammocking and my camping the same way. I like to keep the lines secured up in a ball or something so it's not everywhere. I'm not tripping over it. I had a good friend of mine a couple of years ago that he had his tarp set up and he had lines everywhere. And I pointed out to him, you know, you need to get that up. Oh, no, well, he's walking back to camp. Going back to his hammock, and he stepped on a line and his foot hooked the other end and he tripped himself and went face first, bam, right on top of a tent stake. And we're lucky it didn't penetrate or break a bone. It left a good goose egg on him, but it's like you just tied your shoelaces together and you fell. Everybody knows about tripping on the lines. So for camp safety, it's a big thing to tie them up and secure them, or at least get them where I can see them and know where they're going to be, to limit my problems. Hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Please leave any questions or comments below. And until next time, I'm Blackie wishing you safe journeys. Have a nice day, guys.